Good morning, everyone. I'm Lucia Amici. I'm a PhD student at INRIA in France. I work with Aline Viana Carnero from INRIA, Marc Rovella from Boston University, and Antonio Lorero from UFMG. Today, I'm going to present to you the paper entitled Understanding Individuals' Proclivity for Novelty-Seeking. But first, let's talk about human mobility. Human mobility refers to the displacement and movements of human beings. So many models have been developed trying to reproduce individuals' trajectories, and many predictors were proposed to forecast the next locations where an individual is going to be. However, they all show limited performance for many reasons: the lack of ground truth data, human beings' complex nature and behavior, and the exploration phenomenon, which means visits to never seen before places, and which is our topic of study. The exploration problem has rarely been tackled in the literature, but represents indeed a real issue. And those who consider the exploration problem so far consider it to be fluctuating among the population. In the following figure, we show the harmful effect of the exploration. So we apply a simple Markov chain predictor on a CDR data set with thousands of users, and we can compute the success rate. After that, we isolate the exploration records and we reapply the same predictor. We can observe that the success rate for the trace with no explorations is on average around 0.97, which is almost 24% higher than the average success rate of the total trace. In our work, we want to provide a better understanding of the exploration phenomenon by answering the following questions. How often does an individual explore, and how many new places does she visit consecutively before going to a familiar location? To this end, we propose a very intuitive modeling for the human movements with an automaton of two states, exploring U and returning R. And we compute two specific values, which are self-transitions performed in each state. After that, we define the intermittency as the sum of the self-transitions performed in each state. These metrics help in characterizing individuals in terms of their intermittency of types of visits. For instance, in this figure, the user who is in zone 1 is less intermittent than the user in zone 3. Next, we define the degree of return as the angle whose tangent is a ratio between the number of successive returns over the number of successive explorations. If we go back to our previous figure, we can tell that the user in zone 1 is more prone to perform explorations than the user in zone 3. We compute both of these metrics for all our users, and we apply a clustering algorithm on all of our data sets, and we obtain the following figures. We can see that our metrics help identifying the same groups for all of our data sets. We label the first group as scouters or extreme explorers. These individuals have a low degree of return and are very intermittent, which means that they are constantly moving between the returning and exploring states, and they are more prone to perform explorations. Then we have the second cluster, which is routiners or extreme returners. These individuals have a surprisingly high degree of return and are very steady and rarely perform explorations. Then we have the third group who are regulars. These individuals have characteristics that are in the middle, in between scouters and routiners. Next, we wanted to understand the mobility behavior of individuals of each profile. So we computed some of the fundamental features that are commonly used to characterize human mobility. And we extract the following characteristics. So the scouters are dynamic and very energetic when exploring. And when they start exploring, they are more prone to perform other explorations. They also chase for new places and in large enlarge their sets of known places constantly. They also explore for longer periods of time and walk longer distances in general. In contrary, routiners are very regular and steady and rarely break their returning routine to perform an exploration and have small sets of known places which they revisit constantly. They also spend shorter amount of time exploring and have a confined mobility. Then we have the regulars who have a medium behavior in between scouters and routiners. Next, we wanted to see if there exist temporal patterns that are followed by the individuals of each profile when performing explorations. So we extracted the exploration timelines of all the individuals, which are the moments at which they performed explorations. Then we computed the average inter-exploration intervals, which means the time between two consecutive explorations, and we did that per hour and for all the profiles. And we obtained the following figure. We can observe that that scouters' proclivity to explore is the highest all over the week and tend to increase by the end of the week, reaching its maximum on Friday. We can also see that the proclivity to explore for the scouters is very high between 4 and 8 p.m., which means that they tend to explore by the end of the day. Then we have routiners who show a very low exploration activity compared to the rest of the population. And this came to confirm our previous statements about this group of individuals. Then we have the regulars who show a stable exploration activity all over the week. After that, we considered only individuals having traces in the city of Beijing, and we we defined neighborhoods as cells of size 2 × 2 kilometer, and we computed the percentage of explorations and return performed in each neighborhood. We can observe that scouters have a mobility that is spread all over the city, and among the 132 neighborhoods of the city center of Beijing, they use 60% of them for exploration and 67% of them for returns, whereas routiners have very confined mobility, whether it concerns explorations or returns, and they use a very small percentage of the space. And whereas regulars have a confined mobility when returning, but they tend to go farther distances when they explore. After that, we wanted to evaluate the capacity of correctly forecasting the next locations where an individual is going to return or explore with a coarse-grained spatial resolution. So we extracted the sequences of visits of the individuals when exploring and when returning, and then we computed the 3 versions of entropy: the random entropy, the temporal uncorrelated entropy, and the real entropy. And after that, we computed their corresponding theoretical predictability. Here we report the PDF of the entropy and the predictability. We can observe the important shift between the real entropy and the 2 other versions of the entropy for all the individuals, which means that the exploration with the coarse-grained spatial resolution is not random as we expected. For instance, the scouters, the entropy, the real entropy for the scouters peaks around 3, which means that the next neighborhood where a scouter is going to go can be found among 2 power 3, which means 8 locations, and only 4 for routiners. You can also observe that the predictability peaks around 0.78 for the scouters and 0.8 for the routiners and regulars, which means that only 22% of the explorations of the individuals appear to be random. After that, we wanted to show how our investigations help isolating people who are hard to predict from the rest of the individuals. So here we applied 2 predictors, Markov chain predictor and PPM, predicting by partial matching algorithms. this time on the CDR data set, but this time with considering the mobility profile of the individuals. So we can observe that both Markov chain and PPM achieve their highest scores with the routiners and the lowest ones with the scouters. After that, we isolated the exploration records from the traces of the individuals, and we obtained the following figure. We have two main observations. First, the success rate is considerably improved in the absence of explorations. Second, the difference between the profile is no longer that important as before. As a conclusion to our study, we showed the existence of three main mobility profiles who are scouters, routiners, and regulars that differ in terms of novelty seeking, mobility traits behavior, temporal patterns, and spatial exploitation. We also show that the exploration activities are far from being random on a coarse-grained spatial scenario, and that our methodology helped distinguishing hard to predict people from the rest of the population. And we also highlighted the importance of taking into account the exploration phenomenon when proposing models or predictors. As a future work, we want to propose an exploration-aware predictor that take into account our previous analysis. So after identifying the mobility profile, the mobility traits, and the temporal and spatial patterns, we aim to tell at any moment if an individual is more prone to explore or to return. If the individual is prone to return, then we can use the state-of-the-art predictor. Else we can use our spatial analysis to propose a neighborhood. Thank you for your attention.